Hello, my name is Arman Shah, president of KITE, and welcome back to the KITE Free Python course. In this video, we're going to continue learning about dictionaries. So to start off, we're going to actually go over a small assignment a small exercise, I should say, on counting the words in a file using dictionaries. So let's open up this file over here. And in this file, we have a piece of a Shakespeare work of art. So it looks like a type of an extract of a paragraph in one of his works. And the goal is to make a program that uses dictionaries to count the number of distinct words. For example, words like light might only appear once, but words like with, and over here, or is might appear more than once. So what you're going to do is download this file, which you could do by clicking the three dots on your browser and going to Save and Share and Save Page As. So this is the file, and we're going to create a program to count the number of words using dictionary. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up the file. So we're going to say file equals open romeo.txt. Now we're going to define our dictionary, or we'll call them counts. So an important part in this is actually making a for loop. So what the logic is that we're going to first we have this open, but what we have to do now is, again, we use for loops to open up and manipulate files. Always remember that. So when we use a for loop to in this file, we're gonna go by each line. So let's first open up the file in using a for loop. So let's say for line in file. So now we're going for each line by line in the file. But one thing we want to do is actually go word by word. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say word equals line dot split. So what that does is that actually splits the line of the file into into a list. So if I were to print this, print word, we're gonna get the whole paragraph of the Romeo text file in a in a list format. So what we did is we split up each line into a list, which each word being an item in the list. So now that we have the list kind of branched out, what we have to do now is we have to make another for loop. So I'm going to erase this. We'll keep that up there though. We're going to make another for loop going by each item in the list. So what I'm going to say for we could say W in word, and now we're going to go by each item in these lists, I should say, and we're going to try to find the distinct ones and add the distinct ones in our counts. So if we're going to say if W is not in counts W equals 1. I think it would actually be better if we put this as words, not word. So then this way we could say word. And then what we're going to say is we're going to have an else statement. Else counts W plus or equals 1. So pretty much what we're saying is we kind of already went over this count, so I don't have to go over too much. We went over it in the last video. We're saying for each word in these lists, if the word, let's say we go to the first word, if this word is not in counts, then we're gonna set it equal to 1. So we're gonna append it, setting that index equal to 1. So we're gonna create a key, set it equal to 1. Then we go to the second word. If that word is not in counts, same thing. We're gonna create a key and set that equal to 1. But once we found a word that is in counts, let's say we go to is and then we go to is again, the same value, then what we're gonna do is, because this boolean is false, it's going to go to else and it's going to add 1 to that. So at the end, if we print counts, we should get a count of, let it run. You know what? Should just say if word not in counts. And I go, oops, I gotta change this too. Forgot to change this. So over here, as you can see, we have gotten accounts of each word in a dictionary. So one thing you might be wondering is we actually, in the last video as well, went over a simplified version of this count system in the dictionaries, using dictionaries. So we went over the get method, if you remember the get method, which we assign a default value if there is no value. And if there's a value, then we add 1 to that value. So instead of using these if and else statements, we could just say for word and words, we could say counts of word is equal to counts dot get word 0, and we're going to add 1 to that. So what we're doing is we're going to say the counts of that word, so meaning that word is equal to, if there is that word, with the default value of 0. So we're going to get the word, meaning we're going to get the first item in that list, and we're going to assign a default value of 0 if there is no key already existing. And if there is a key existing, then we're going to get that value and add 1. So how this works is we'll still get the same value. It's just a shorter way to write it. So we're assigning counts of word to that new get method. And if you're having trouble or confused with the get method, please watch that last video that was just posted, 9.1 dictionaries, because that one goes over the get method in detail. One thing to understand with dictionaries is that if we were to use for loops like we just did, a for loop will only go over the keys. So actually in the last exercise, we didn't use for loops with dictionaries. We use a for loop to create a dictionary. We used it with a list. But in this case, in this program over here, we have accounts for names, Chuck, Annie, and Jan. And we use a for loop for each key. That's something to keep in mind, that a for loop would traverse the keys, Chuck, Annie, and Jan. So it would not traverse the values or just the items in general, going Chuck and then 1, then Annie, and 42, just the keys. So, but you could, using the counts of the key, if you do want to print the key, you could print the key as well as the value using counts and the index key. So over here, this is how the program will look. We have the counts dictionary using Chuck, Annie, and Jan. And when we use a for loop, it will only recognize the key unless we directly use like a type of method, such as the key, the value method, or if we just use the index itself, counts of key, then we could print or return the value of each key in a dictionary. But if we just, the iteration variable itself will be the key only. If we run this, again, the iteration variable key would print the key itself, unless in this case we also printed the count of the key, so the index, which is the value. So a good exercise to go over is how to manipulate these dictionaries, specifically how to manipulate dictionary keys using these for loops. And an exercise I'm going to go over is how to put these keys in alphabetical order and then reprint the counts. So for example, we have Chuck, Annie, and Jan. I wanted to put it in alphabetical order, which would be Annie, Chuck, and then Jan. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing to do is just make the keys in a list, because the dictionary itself, if we were to use a sort with dictionary, it would sort it according to its values. Remember, the sort method would sort numbers or would sort stuff in alphabetical order. And if we wanted to use sort dictionaries, it would sort through the value. we want to sort through the key, which is the names. The only way to do that is make a list of each key. So I'm going to say list equals list. I'm going to say counts dot keys. Remember, we could use this keys method to return the keys. So let's print the list and see what we get. We're going to get a list of the names, as we thought. Now we're going to sort the list. So we're going to say list dot sort. And we're going to print the list one more time. So as you can see, list dot sort put the names in alphabetical order. So what we could do, and this gets a little bit more complicated, is now that we have this in alphabetical order, I'm going to create a for loop. And I'm going to say for name in list. And what we're going to do is we're going to print the name. So what's that going to do? It's going to just print the name in alphabetical order. I'm going to get rid of these. But what we also want is we want to print the value, right, with that. We want to print something where it prints like a normal dictionary, but we're not getting that when we just print the name. What we want is we should have the value next to each name. So this should be 32, 1, and 29. So how do we do that? Well, it's actually simple. So because the value of each name in the list, Annie, Chuck, and Jan, is the same string value as the counts indexes, or the keys, we could just simply say counts of that name. So what this would do is we're going to go over each list. I'm going to reprint list just so we can better see. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over each item in the list. Let's go with the first one in the for loop. We're going to print the first string in that for loop because it's for loop. And then we're going to go and we're going to print the counts of that name. So it goes to the counts, finds Annie, because Annie is the same value as that for loop. So we're going to print the counts of that name. So thank you for joining us in this KITE lecture. Make sure to join our Discord, which is linked below, if you want an open forums where you can ask any questions on exercises or just a course in general to professional KITE tutors. Also, make sure to follow our new Instagram and even Facebook page.